You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
I am doing a lot better than the NFL is doing right now, Derek. They have lots and lots of problems going on. There are lots of players testing positive for COVID, both vaccinated and unvaccinated alike. So they're getting a mix of both, but it wreaked a little bit of havoc here with what we are going to do in week 15. So we're going to see how this all shakes out, both for the NFL and for fantasy playoffs, right? Because there's a lot of questions that a whole bunch of people want answers to set their lineups for the playoffs.
So here's my early PSA announcement for this one and some strategy heading into this weekend. So if you have guys that and so this is one of those two, right? Like you and your league are going to have to figure out how you guys are going to navigate through this together so everybody's on the same footing. I know that some leagues have taken the approach of, listen, like, you got to treat it just like any other injury. If they're questionable, they're questionable. They may not clear, things like that. And you may have to make plans accordingly. Other leagues have gone through and said, hey, well, if designate players that are on the list and, if you're planning on playing them in case they clear, designate a backup in case they don't go. What I will tell you is that in any case, make plans. And make a strategy that you can go through, right? So if you have guys playing on the Tuesday games, it's just like if they were playing on a Monday night game. You have to have somebody else available to swap them out if you need to, right? So this is one of those that when going through your lineup, you really need to make sure that you've got your you've got everybody out of your flex positions, that if they're playing later, and put those guys that are playing later in the flex positions, things like that, so that you have that flexibility in order to make those changes and make that thing happen. And then make sure that you've got a backup, you've got somebody else that can play in those things, on the roster, things like that, in case something should happen there. So that way you can make a swap and a sub at the last moment, and you're not taking a goose egg here in the fantasy playoffs. But so that's my big PSA announcement there, and really just kind of some common sense strategy there. So just make sure that you're planning accordingly and making the changes that you need to make in order to try and come out of this weekend successful.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for me to play any of the Tuesday night players.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but I mean, Daryl Henderson is the one that sticks out, right? Between the two teams, the Eagles, the football team, the Seahawks, and the Rams. Hurts, I think, the way he's practicing, he got in a full practice today, so that takes a bit of pressure off a little bit. We'll kind of see how some of these injury reports look between Saturday and should be Sunday before kickoff. So Hurts, I'm feeling a little bit better about, but I'm thinking the running back position in general, right? Like there's a lot of Eagles running backs now. Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard are set to be good to go for this game. So you should be good there. Daryl Henderson is still not cleared. He has not cleared COVID protocols yet. So you need to be very mindful of that if you don't have Sony Michel to just have that instant flip, if it were me, I would be pivoting away from Daryl Henderson. As painful as that is, you can't take the risk of running into the last game of the week with a potential goose egg with your fantasy playoffs on the line. Like, you just can't do that. So be very, very cautious as you're setting your lineups this weekend. Make sure you're staying up to date with the news and the latest and greatest on these players, because you will have to be fast with your fingers to adjust rosters accordingly. So that way you don't take goose eggs, because that will get you kicked out of the fantasy playoffs faster than anything.
Yep. So yeah, there's a lots of things that you're going to need to keep your eyes on, things like that. And if you're looking for some help trying to pivot, or there's some guys that are, hey, should I go this route? Should I go that route? You can always hit us up on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. and just, hit us up and get our thoughts there as well. We tend to get back to you awfully quick, and appreciate interacting with you guys there as well. So guys, again, if you're out there, you're watching all that good stuff, throw your comments in, throw your questions in. Let's talk about those tonight as we start going through the slate of games. But before we get into that, we had a wild and crazy game last night. And do you think Stanley is now a bigger believer in field goals than he was going into that game? Like, I don't know how in the world you can't be, because if he just kicks field goals instead of turning the ball over on downs, they win that game in regulation.
Yeah, I mean, they left 12 points on the board because of going for it on fourth down and not capitalizing. So you have to think that if I only used my kicker, right? I mean,
Right.
even in one of those instances, I get the first drive, right? The very first one, you're trying to set the tone. You're at home. You're trying to shake off the, I guess, the nerves of Darnold Parham getting injured there and having to be carted off. Like, that's a really crazy, scary situation for not only the player but the team involved, seeing their teammate go down like that in the first drive of the game. Like, that does mess with you mentally, and athlete or not, that's a big deal. So I get the first one, but man, oh man, like, there's some of those where I get it, you can't beat the Chiefs with just field goals, but you also have to take the points when they're available.
Right.
And it was clear that the Chiefs had a game plan for these fourth down plays. Like, they were dialing up blitzes, they had their hands in the air, they were knocking down passes. Like, either run the ball and do something they weren't expecting, because they threw the ball on every single one of those fourth down plays they didn't make.
And Austin Eckler looked good last night. Justin Jackson looked good last night, and both of them were breaking runs at will.
Yeah, I thought they didn't use Eckler as much as they should have, even with
No.
Jackson being so good. Like, I thought there were stretches of that game where Eckler disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
When was it? Was it the second? Yeah, the second goal line stand that the Chiefs had, where the Chargers fumbled.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Eckler didn't get back in until they got the interception. Then they said, "Okay, we're not messing around with this anymore. Eckler, go stick it in." But it shouldn't come to that. Put your best player on the field. He had been sitting out the drive. He was fresh. I get it. You're trying to reward other guys, but you're also fighting for first in the division. You're fighting for a chance of a first round bye in the playoffs. That is a big freaking deal. And I'm not trusting Joshua Kelly or Justin Jackson or Michael Jackson. It doesn't matter who the heck it is, other than my workhorse back, Austin Eckler. Like, stick him in the game and let him do what you're paying the man to do.
And not only that, Austin Eckler has one of the best noses for the end zone in the NFL these days at the running back position. Like, he finds a way to shimmy, shake, squeeze through the smallest opening and manage to get in the end zone when it doesn't look like there's any daylight. Like, he just finds a way to get in the end zone when he's given the chance. And so you've got a guy like that on your bench when, that was one of those that was mind-boggling to me. But again, it was one of those that I had the similar thought last week when the Broncos played the Chiefs, where, Fangio kept saying, "Oh, well, you can't kick field goals against these guys. Field goals won't keep you in the game." It now, in both stretches the last 2 weeks, if the Chargers kick field goals on that one, they're up 20-10 going into halftime on that one. And so you got a 2-possession game on the Chiefs, at your home stadium going into halftime. Like, you can't tell me that doesn't dramatically change change the dynamic in that locker room and how that all looks and works, instead of it being a much, much closer game there, right? Same thing with the Broncos the week before. Like, they had a chance had they kicked field goals in similar situations, they would have been down by a touchdown instead of down by, a couple of possessions again going into halftime. And again, if you can keep these games close, right? Like, that's the thing that you've got to do with that. If you're a team that's not supposed to win, like both of those teams they were underdogs going into those games, take the points when you can get them, keep the game close. And just like in any other sport, if you're able to hang around and hang around and hang around and a team can't put you away, then it's coming down to the end of that thing. And the Chargers, quite frankly, were in the position to try and put the Chiefs away early in that one and just didn't. And that's kind of on them and some strange coaching decisions going down the stretch there to allow the Chiefs to stay in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Buck and Aikman were trying to make excuses. Well, the analytics say go for it. At some point, you got to throw the analytics out the window because you're exactly right. If you're just kicking field goals for the sake of field goals, it doesn't mean anything. But field goals to go up 2 possessions against a pretty high-powered offense, and they're seemingly starting to kind of click here a little bit and find their groove. Like, that's a different scenario. You're not just going up by 3; you're going up by 10. That's 2 possessions that you have to do, and they needed that because the defense played their butts off. But for the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter and in overtime, that defense was gassed. And as soon as Kansas City won that coin flip, I don't know that there was any doubt that Kansas City wasn't going to win that game. Now, I wasn't expecting
a Travis Kelce 30-yarder house call to
I wasn't expecting that. I was a little bummed because it blew my prediction for the game of the Chargers to cover. But in general, the defense was just gassed. Like, they played their tails off for 3.5 quarters, and they just ran out of it. And the offense didn't do the defense any favors. Specifically, the head coach didn't do the defense any favors because he kept trotting the offense out on 4th and 1 and 4th and 2 instead of taking the surefire points against a team that does force the ball when they get down double digits. We've seen Mahomes do that all year long. He feels that pressure now. I would have done it differently. And yes, it's easy to armchair coach, but I mean, during the game, I'm saying I would be doing this differently. Like, take the 2 possession lead.
Yeah, and so, again, that's one of those that we keep hearing this analytics thing come into the display. And granted, I'm one that's a big believer in the statistics and believing in the analytics and all of those things. But here, let me pose this question in a different way. Instead of saying that the analytics say to go for it on 4th and 2, 4th and 1, because you'll get it, things like that. What do the analytics say when you're up by 2 possessions? What do the analytics say when you're up by 10, 14, 20 points, whatever that looks like? That drastically changes what the other team has to do in the game. And to your point, that's where I was going to go with this thing. Patrick Mahomes, when we see him press, that's when the turnovers happen, and that's where the Chiefs look very, very out of sorts going down the stretch, and that's where they are very, very vulnerable to ultimately lose games and kind of give those things away there. So again, right, like you said, it's one thing to sit back here and kind of armchair quarterback that thing, armchair coach that thing the day after, but who gets to play armchair coach for the rest of the season? That's a guy named Urban Myers. That's one.
Because he kicked the kicker, right? I mean, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And it happened like 4 months ago. Like, This isn't even new news. It was just resurfaced news. But what a clown. And I don't know that I have better words than this. Like, what a clown. You go and you take over this team and you want this opportunity and you're trying to prove something. And then you go hang out with co-eds instead of coming back with your team on the plane, earlier on in the season, and you have to make a public apology for that after getting ridiculed. You keep sitting your best player in James Robinson, and you're putting your quarterback in terrible positions. And then, oh, by the way, way back in minicamp, you were messing around and you kicked your kicker.
And then you started deciding to call him names and telling him that you'll kick him whenever he feels like.
Well, my question is now, is this the bullshit that happened in Utah, that happened in Florida, that happened at Ohio State, that these universities started catching wind of, and then they let Urban walk out peacefully? Like, they let Urban set his own terms. He wanted to be with family. Oh, he had a health condition. Oh, he wanted to do this. Like, all these things. Like, how many times has this gone on and just unreported? And I can't believe in the day of social media that it has, right? Like, I just don't expect so many of these players to stay quiet any longer. This isn't back, not to bring up a black eye, but the Penn State issue from a couple of years ago, right? And all the things that came out under Joe Paterno's you know,
Tenure.
regime. Yeah, that happened there and that have kind of resurfaced a couple years back. But man, oh man, like it does make you question, well, why did he abruptly leave Florida when Tim Tebow left? Like, but would Tim Tebow stand for that? Like, Tim Tebow, the guy, seems really stand up. Like he's kind of the all-American boy, right? The athlete, another story. That's not for this, but it just leads to a lot of questions. But Urban Meyer should be done now. Like, what a clown. I can't believe you squander an opportunity like that. There's only 32 jobs like this in the world. And you decided to, piss it away because you kick the kicker and go hang out with co-eds instead of coaching your football team.
Right. And there was other reports coming out of there too, that some of their free agent acquisitions that they brought in, things like that, that some of these players had to be talked into coming back into the facilities. These are guys that are getting paid multi-millions of dollars a season to do this. And they're coming to the standpoint of, hey, maybe this just isn't worth me going into work anymore. And going back into the facility to this environment. And I think you may have brought something up there that may have some merit there to it, because of the fact that you look at, right, like how some of these things have transpired with how he left Florida State, how he left Ohio State, right? And when he left Ohio State, it wasn't necessarily under the best of terms. There was a lot of things going on within his coaching staff and things like that that seemed to have hastened his departure there. And so, there could be something to that, but again, it's all speculation at this point. And, we're just a couple of guys speculating on that, but, it is one of those things that how do you just let this one kind of slip through your fingers? And, again, it kind of goes to show that coaching in the NFL is 1,000% different than coaching in college.
Yeah. I mean, good riddance. The NFL deserves better. And hot name, hot commodity or not, like good riddance. And here we are. Like, he will surely, he's Urban Meyer, golden child, whatever. I'm sure he'll land on his feet somewhere. He'll go back to Fox and do the pregame show like he was doing, like whatever that looks like. But you physically, right, wrong, or different, he physically assaulted a player. And he will get another opportunity, and John Gruden's emails, for whatever they are, was career suicide. That wasn't even, we don't even have the full story around all those Washington emails. We just managed to get the Gruden side of things. Like, there's a lot of dirty little secrets the NFL has right now that I hope sooner or later come out for everybody to see the full picture, because those of us who, can read between the tea leaves a little bit and understand what is and isn't going on, we all know that there's a much bigger picture that the NFL is trying to bury. And so that'll all come to light here eventually, I'm hoping.
Yeah. One of those things that is, I think you're right. I think we'll finally see those things come to light, and that's going to be kind of the way that I think a lot of that, you got to air it out and you got to just kind of let it, let it come to light so that you can ultimately deal with it and go from there. But let's go ahead and start heading over into some craziness this week. And I don't know how else to even describe it, because we're not even talking about this weekend anymore. We're now talking about Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So the good news is that we've got 4 straight days of NFL football now. But the bad news is that you've got a lot of games that got moved around, changed, switched, everything else, to the point where you now have a couple of games now on Sunday or on Tuesday that weren't there. You now have 2 games on Monday, and then 10 games on Sunday and 1 game on Saturday. So you've got to be very on your toes when you're looking at your fantasy rosters when it comes to this. But, we'll start going through some of these things and breaking down some of the matchups here and what this is going to look like, and see what we can do to try and make some sense of it all. So let's go ahead and head on over to Indianapolis, where the New England Patriots are coming to town. Indy is favored by 2.5 points. The over-under is 45.5 on this one. What are your thoughts here?
Respect to Indianapolis for them being a 2.5 point favorite against the number 1 seed New England Patriots, because that looks a little weird to me. It just glancing at the line, but the Colts have been playing really good football. They defensively, they're fifth against the run, which is what the Patriots do best. We know the Patriots are going to game plan to stop Jonathan Taylor, and I think Michael Pittman is going to have kind of a really bummer of a game, if you will. So I I like the under here. I don't. I think points are going to be really hard to come by. So I do like the under. And man, I just think New England finds a way to pull this one out on the road. Like there just seems to be a unity along that defense and an understanding of it is our job to keep us in these games so our offense can go score 17 points and find a way to win, create turnovers, short field situations. And as good as the Colts defense has been playing lately, I do still think they have some holes. So I expect Kendrick Bourne to kind of shuffle through, and you'll probably see him with 75 yards and a touchdown in this game. I think Jacoby Myers good for another 75 to 80 yards. We'll see if Hunter Henry can fall into the end zone, but no Damian Harris, so it's all Ramondre Stevenson. So those of you who have Harris in your lineups, kick him out. It's going to be the Stevenson show, but this game is. I expect this game to be a true defensive slugfest. Like this game is not going to be high scoring, fun to watch like this past Thursday night game was. This game is going to play a lot more low scoring and just physical hard mouth football.
Yeah, this one has the feel of a 23 to 20, 24, 21 type of feel to it. But I think New England does find a way to win this one. Yeah, at this point, I guess I'm just not betting against Bill because Bill looks like he's in full form, and the fact that Patriots defense is looking back to what we're used to seeing out of a Patriots defense, looking really good, looking really stout. And so I'm going to go with New England. I'm going to go with the under on this one. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. Also the note on Damian Harris. So if Ramondre Stevenson, who is still available in a few leagues out there, needs to not be available in any of your leagues that you're in after you get done watching the show tonight, like go on to whatever platform you're on right now, click the add button and get him on there because New England is going to want to run the ball. This is going to be one of those that these two teams are going to try and establish the run and try and just pound this thing out. So you're going to see a lot of clock moving, and kind of a constant clock moving is how I feel like this one's going to go, far more than, seeing some incomplete passes, things like that. This one's not going to surprise me when we look up and there's just been, probably 70 run plays called in this one total. That's not going to surprise me in the least in this game. So Ramondre Stevenson could be a great play and a great option for you, especially as a backup type of deal for any of your deals. And not only that, if you got Ramondre Stevenson in your lineup, whether or not he was able to play on Saturday, and should something happen, then you've got some fallbacks on the weekend, like we were already talking about, right? So one of those things that if you've got a guy that is going to play and should put up a good game like Ramondre Stevenson is, I'm putting him in my lineups just about everywhere I can, unless I've got like just a stacked running back room across the board. So very cool. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, you're spot on. I mean, you take the points where you can. There's so many injuries and so many illnesses going along with the NFL. If you have a running back on your roster that will see the warranted volume, like a Ramondre Stevenson will, their matchup at this point is moot. Like you have to put them in your lineup to guarantee those points, because the last thing you want to do is bank on James Conner, a game that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Yes, the game's the next day, but Chase Edmonds is coming back off of IR. James Conner's questionable. Like the smart thing to do is for Kingsbury to sit him down against Detroit, let Edmonds get accustomed to getting back in the field for things, and let Kyler chuck it around to AJ Green and Christian Kirk and Rondell Moore and do it that way, as opposed to taking your asset in James Conner, who might be the best free agent pickup this past offseason, in the NFL, the way he's performed for Arizona. But I don't want to chance that. And as much as I like James Conner and I have him in different leagues, if I have an option like Stevenson, I'm playing him over James Conner because he's the healthy, sure thing.
I like it. Alrighty, let's go ahead and head on over to Buffalo, where the Carolina Panthers are coming to town. Buffalo favored by 12 points. 44.5 is the over-under on this one. Interesting side note, looking at it, the last 11 matchups where you've seen a team favored by a touchdown or more in the NFL are 11-0 against the spread. And this week there's a bunch of spreads that are that way. This is one of those with the 12-point spread. Kevin, what are your thoughts here?
I think the streak ends right here. I'm taking Carolina to cover. I think it might be a 10-point game. I don't think it's a 12-point game, though. The Carolina defense is better than people give them credit for. Their offense has been terrible, so that makes the defense spend more time on the field and everything else. But while Buffalo's been playing better, Buffalo doesn't have a run game. And Carolina does do a good job defending the pass. So I do think they're going to make it a little bit difficult for Stephon Diggs. They're going to find a way to keep Knox at least in check, right? These guys are still going to get targets and catches, so I'm not saying bench them, but just understand that the Panthers defense is better than, just looking at your fantasy cheat sheet and saying, well, they're only projected for 5.8 points. That's terrible. Well, it's because their defense puts them their offense puts them in bad positions. So I like the Bills to win. Definitely taking, the money lines there for the Bills, but I do like Carolina to cover here.
Yeah, I was looking at this one as well, and there's a lot of games out there that I think that streak and that trend that we're seeing right there. I am thinking that there's a lot of there's a lot of teams out there that are going to snap this one and end it. This is one of those that is in contention for me on this one, because it's not going to surprise me if I look up and this game ends 24-14 type of thing. Like you said, Carolina's been playing well on defense. Buffalo's offense has struggled over the last several games here. Especially in the first half. They seem to have a tough time getting it going. They go into the halftime, the locker room, and all of a sudden Josh Allen and team remember how to throw the ball and get things going again there. But those second half adjustments, you can't necessarily always bank on that. And I think that you're going to see this one probably end somewhere in the neighborhood of about 24-14. That's how I'm going to look at this one and kind of play that one out there. So I think you're right. I think that you're going to see Carolina cover, but it's going to be, kind of a just barely cover and a low scoring affair in this one. Not looking at, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this reminds me of the Cardinals-Panthers game, where the Cardinals were on a roll. We thought they were going to come in there and smash, and all of a sudden they ran up against this Panthers defense that, is tougher than people give them credit for, and Carolina outright won that game. So I just people need to be careful with this one. I don't think that it's going to be this much of a blowout.
Nope. I would agree with that thought. Tyson over on YouTube. Appreciate you tuning in, Tyson. I believe this is the first time we've seen you in the chat. Who should I pick up now that Renfrow is out? Ooh, that is going to be a tough one because Waller also out over there in Las Vegas. So, that's going to definitely put a hamper on things there. But Kevin, what's your thoughts on who to potentially try and replace Renfrow for your fantasy lineups?
Well, if you're going for a ceiling play, you can be cheeky and look at like a Donovan Peoples-Jones for Cleveland, since they're going to be down some receivers too. I don't necessarily love that option, but that's always possible. I think another option to look at is a Christian Kirk for Arizona, with DeAndre Hopkins being out. Him and AJ Green are going to be seeing a larger target share, also with James Conner hopefully being sat down. That should lead to Arizona throwing the ball a little bit more. Jamison Crowder is interesting because he's been the healthy Jet lately. And I know Barabos, am I saying his name right, Derek? Had a pretty decent game for the Jets last week, but I wouldn't count on that.
Barrios.
Yes, thank you. Let's see. Another one. I'd be looking at is KJ Osborne for Minnesota, who's on a lot of waiver wires right now with Thielen still dinged up with that high ankle sprain. I think he's another, or JK? KJ, sorry.
Osborne?
Yes, I think he's another option to be looking at. So those are some situations where they're healthy players, right? Like they're guys that at the moment we know are going to play. So that's always a good thing. And taking extra volume than what maybe they're slated in at. If Renfro was in your flex, a sneaky play would be a Royce Freeman, who we kind of believe is going to be the lead back for the Houston Texans, which generally is a bad thing. But they are going up against Jacksonville. So it does lead to some upside out of Royce Freeman. He had 6 catches last week to help in PPR leagues to go along with 11 rushes for 55 yards. So there's definitely some options out there. But those would probably be some of my top options that come to mind.
Yeah. Although, Tyson, I'm not sure where you're seeing that that Renfro is out. I haven't seen any news break on that one. Just trying to do some quick research here while Kevin was giving you all those great options there as well. I'm not seeing anything where he is out for this game. Anything like that. I know that game has been moved for Monday now instead of it being the Sunday, the game, the earlier game on that one. But I'm not seeing anything that's showing that he is out on that one. Checking a couple of different places. And, right now with the Browns organization in the state that it's in, I would look to play Renfro if he's available there. So again, I'm not sure where you're necessarily seeing that one, but Kevin just gave you a bunch of great options there, and we'll certainly keep an eye on that one to see if anything changes. But everything that I've just seen shows that he is going to be available to play on that Monday game. And it's not even a Monday night game. It's a Monday afternoon game with the move there. So Kevin, unless you're seeing anything that would show that he is going to be out.
No, I was doing the same thing when you were talking because I hadn't heard that. But if that comes to be, those are all good options. But Renfro is definitely the best of all of them.
Gotcha. Well, Tyson, if Tyson's saying that he's out, and if he's out, you've got some more information than what we've got on that one, because everything that we're looking at shows that he's there. But Kevin just gave you a bunch of great options there as far as which way to look for some replacements there for Hunter Renfro. Alrighty. Guys, again, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, make sure you throw them in the chat. We love interacting and chatting with you guys. Appreciate all the feedback and the comments and the questions. Really makes the show a lot of fun while we get to talk to y'all. Let's go ahead and head on over to Detroit, where the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Detroit Lions. Arizona favored by 12.5. The over-under on this one is 47.5. What are your thoughts here?
I like Arizona to cover in this game, and I do think I like the over a little bit because Kyler's going to get back in the swing of things here. They need to keep the pace here. They need to find ways to get that game back. And Detroit, I think, is broken. No DeAndre Swift, no TJ Hawkinson. I think the defense is finally starting to just completely give up here, as we saw last week. So I like the Cardinals to come in on the road, and I like them to cover this game. I think it's probably about a 13-point swing, possibly more, but I'm taking the Cardinals to cover the 12.5 on this one.
Gotcha. This is one of those that I also have. This one here has kind of that feeling of just almost a trap game a little bit for me. When it's all said and done, right? Like Detroit has found a way to keep games closer than they should all season long. They just had that way to fight and make that thing happen. Although Detroit's dealing with several players out, looks like they're going to be missing several key units still on the defensive side of the ball. Again, their running back core is banged up there. Be interesting to see how that one plays out there. So it's one of those, like, I keep looking at this game feeling like it's a little bit of a trap game there, but I think you're right. I think when it's all said and done, that Kyler and team, especially with Kyler back, I think they're going to find a way to ultimately win this thing by probably 14 when it's all said and done. But Yeah, I think that you're going to see this one not necessarily be quite the fast-paced Cardinals offense that we've seen on this one. I think that they're going to take full advantage of that bad Detroit Lions defense there and that run defense especially. So if Connor goes, I think he'll get some run, but I think for the most part they're going to do like you were saying earlier, where they're going to kind of, even if he's active, kind of give him a resting active type of game there, where you see Chase Edmonds get a lot more of the run there, and you see a lot more of potentially a Rondale Moore short type of passing works, things like that, and all that kind of good stuff. So I like it. I like the under. So I think the Cardinals, and I like the under, and so that's kind of where I'm looking there. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, unfortunately, the Lions don't bring much as an entertainment value. Like, this is a game that will be catching on fast forward a little bit and not necessarily wanting to watch play by play, because I just think this Lions team's broken right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So let's go ahead and head on over here to the next matchup. And that is going to be the New York Jets going to the Miami Dolphins. Miami favored by 9.5. This line has moved pretty good over the last little bit there, where checking it earlier in the week, at one point I saw it was 7 points. Looked like it's now up to 9.5. The over under on it is 41. What are your thoughts on this one?
Man, the way the Miami defense has been playing lately, I like Miami on the money line for sure. I do like Miami to win this game in South Beach. Does it help that Michael Carter's coming back for the Jets? Yeah, I think in some respects that helps them a little bit. But they're still down Elijah Moore. Corey Davis is on IR, so you don't have a whole lot of bang coming out of that pass-catching group at the moment. Now, Zach Wilson should probably still be slinging it, right? Like, he does have a little bit of that gunslinger mentality and the short memory from what we've seen this season. So he'll keep tossing it around a little bit, but generally these games are closer than people expect. But I think Miami's kind of hitting their stride right now between defense and what Tua has been able to do. Now, I think Waddle's out, if I believe. I did see that Waddle's out, so we're going to see.
He did test, so we're going to see what happens with the protocols.
Okay, so we'll see some more Gesicki if Waddle doesn't go. Parker, we'll probably see him a little bit more involved. Will Fuller is still out. What a bust it's been. Like, that really stinks, because I thought he would provide a jolt for this team, and just hasn't come to pass. Albert Wilson, like, there's another guy. Like, if you're looking for a deep, sneaky receiver, Albert Wilson could be that guy if you're looking for a third wide receiver or a flex play, something in that neighborhood, and you're scraping the bottom
ceiling
barrel.
Shot, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're a big dog going in here, yeah, that's not a bad play there. Myles Gaskin, though, did look like he cleared protocols and will be available for this game, and that's where I look for Miami to go heavily on this one. The Jets are horrendous when it comes to pass defense, especially giving up just a ton of points. It's if you want points and you're running back, go play the Jets, because they'll give them to you. So again, this is one of those that I think you're going to see Myles Gaskin definitely show up big time on this one. Go ahead.
The coaching staff did note that they're not necessarily convinced that Gaskin's going to get his full workload, though. Like, so just be careful with that. They've been talking about Salvon Ahmed a little bit more here. So I do think they want to get through the next day of practice and kind of see how Gaskin's looking, or his not whether he's in shape, but just kind of how his conditioning is coming off of this COVID protocol. So be mindful. I understand that we want to play him, and if fully healthy, I'd say absolutely. But the coaching staff's already rumoring that Salvon Ahmed might be getting a little bit more volume than what we've seen here the past few weeks.
Yeah. And this is one of those that I actually see the Jets finding a way to cover this game. I think that this one's going to ultimately play out in about a 7-point type of matchup, but I do see the under. So I like the Dolphins to win. I like the Jets to cover, and that feels kind of gross saying that, but I do see the under happening there as well. So definitely an interesting type of matchup there. We already saw these two teams go at it earlier this year where it was a 7-point game. And I believe that was one of those that they started Joe Flacco to try and take care of this exotic Miami defense, I think was the lines that we were getting out of that and the narrative we were getting out of that game going through it. So very interesting. We'll see how this thing continues to play out there, but that's how I kind of see this one. I like the Jets to cover. I like the Dolphins to win, and I like the under on this one. Any other thoughts on this game?
No, sir. Should be a good divisional game.
Yes, sir. Let's go ahead and head on over into the New York Giants, where the Dallas Cowboys are coming to town here, and Dallas favored by 10.5. The over-under is 44.5. What are your thoughts here?
The Cowboys' offense just hasn't looked overwhelming lately. No. They've definitely been struggling. Now, I think part of that's because their running backs have been rather non-existent. They looked really good in the first half against the football team last week and then struggled mightily in the second half to put them away. I think Jerry Jones calling Dak out in the press this week does help Dak Prescott a little bit, though. Like, I do think we find a little bit more oomph. That being said, the game's in the Meadowlands, so the wind could be blowing sideways, upside down, and inside out for all we know by the time Mother Nature gets around. So 10.5 is a big number for the Cowboys to cover here on the road. I think the Giants keep it within 10. So I guess I'm taking the Giants to cover the 10.5. But I do like the over here. Like, I realized that the Cowboys laid the wood to them in Dallas earlier this year. It was kind of Kadarius Toney's breakout game, and then since then he has completely fallen off the wagon between injuries and just not being available to the Giants. That has really hurt in a lot of leagues. And I was a main proponent. Grab Kadarius Toney. Like, we've seen what they're going to do with him, and then he didn't do squat afterwards. So. Zeke's saying he's feeling better. He's been saying that, but he's using this knee brace, which he is saying is giving him more confidence. He keeps saying that he feels healthier than he has been because of this reduced workload, and it's been a little bit easier on him. So maybe we start to see some of that, but beware with Zeke. Like, he's definitely RB, mid RB2 status right now. Like, he is not the workhorse top 6, top 7 back that we all drafted him to be. So tamper your expectations. We'll see if Tony Pollard's able to go, and if he is, what that looks like. But I expect CeeDee Lamb to be involved. I am hoping that Dalton Schultz gets more involved for the Cowboys, and we'll see where that's going. I think the only thing that can push this game past the 10.5 for Dallas is if Mike Glennon just really craps the bed. Like, that's the one wild card here that I'm looking at this going, maybe Dallas can cover this 10.5 because Glennon ain't gonna do it. Like, so that I might have to think on that 10.5 actually, Derek, because now I might be talking myself into Dallas covering.
Yeah, this is one of those this one, when I first looked at it again, felt like a trap game as well when you're talking that spread and how that one kind of looks and works. But because, again, Dallas has not looked very explosive lately on the offensive side of the ball. The Giants have looked fully inept for the better part of the season here. And this is, again, one of those that you've got Mike Glennon looking like he's going to be the starter here. But I've seen a lot of different reports that he might be on a quick hook here for Jake Fromm just to see what they've got in that kid there. So it could be a very interesting thing that plays out there. And as much as I want to say that the Giants find a way to keep this thing under 10 points, I don't know that they're going to have the firepower on offense to get that done. And really that starts with the quarterback. We've already seen Daniel Jones fully ruled out of this one. And man, oh man, I think I'm there with you. I think the more we go through this thing, the more I'm talking myself into Dallas finds a way to cover that thing. I just don't like it. But I do think that you'll probably see the under on this one, just from the standpoint that I don't know that the Giants are able to put up more than about 10, 15 points in this one. And so that's where, I think that's where I'm going. The Dallas is going to cover. The Giants are going to, Dallas is going to cover and the under on this one, just good. The lack of points that the Giants are going to put up to push this thing over. Any other thoughts on this one? Okay.
No.
All righty, let's go ahead and head on over to the Tennessee Titans, heading over to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not very often when I pull up a line and things like that it literally has a 0 spread on it. So spread is a push right now on this one. It's a pick'em type of game. Over under 44 on this one. What are your thoughts here?
I'm hoping Pittsburgh finds a way to win at home. Like, that's what my fan heart, because I don't think Tennessee's that good. Anyway, Pittsburgh at home, 6.5. What the heck? I'll take Pittsburgh to win the game. I mean, they're saying it's a coin flip. I'll flip a coin. Pittsburgh's going to win. I'm going to take the over just because it's more fun that way. And the Pittsburgh's been good at backdoor covering here lately. So I'll take Pittsburgh, and they'll get to the over on a backdoor field goal or something like that to end the game.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be one of those that you know what's going to happen. Tennessee's going to find a way to get up in this game, 10, 14 points, and then Pittsburgh will decide to come roaring back in the fourth quarter, and Big Ben will look like, find a way to will that team to tie it up type of thing. And I think you're right. I think a field goal at the end of this thing, whoever has the ball last is going to win this one. At which point I'll take the hometown team there to do that. So I like Pittsburgh. I'm going to take the over just because of the fact that it's more fun to root for points than it is to not root for points. So I'm there with you. That's where we'll go. This next matchup is going to be a interesting one here. The Houston Texans heading to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville favored by 5. The over-under is 39.5. And this was an interesting line, how this thing moved, because when it first opened, it was like a 3-point game, 3-point line. Jacksonville fired their head coach, and all of a sudden they became bigger favorites at home. Not something that you normally see when a team fires their head coach, that they become bigger favorites the week that he's fired. But that is what happened here. So who you like in this one?
Oh, man. I'm going to take Jacksonville because they're at home. I do think that getting Urban Meyer out of there probably rallied some of the veterans, if all the noise that we've been hearing, even if it has an ounce of truth to it, right? Like some of these veteran players and these guys that you were alluding to earlier, right? These free agent pickups are going, I don't need this crap. Get them back on the same page. I expect a big, big dose of James Robinson to help take some pressure off. We might see a little bit more out of the play action game, or even the RPO quarterback running game from Trevor Lawrence. Houston is a team that I think, quite frankly, wants to lose at this point. I mean, they're just playing for draft picks. So I'm not expecting a whole lot. Brandon Cooks is the only guy that I have confidence in. If I'm getting in a big, big pinch, Royce Freeman, like, that's fine. I understand that. But I don't have much faith in what this Houston Texans team has at the moment.
No, and it'd be all right with me if the Detroit Lions figured out a way to win another one and the Texans didn't, just from a bet I made preseason on the lowest win total in the or the worst record in the NFL at the end of that, where the Texans were firmly on that list there. So I'm hoping the Lions can find one more game and find a way to win one of those. But yeah, I think I'm right there with you. The fact that the Houston Texans have fully gone to Davis Mills mode to see what they can try and figure out there, and see if they every time I say that name, I sit there and I think of cereal. But anyway, so the
start calling him General Mills,
right? Well, the quarterback is the general of the football team, right? So the field general. So maybe it fits, but they're full on in old Davis Mills mode there to see what they need and see if they really can think that they can put together a team with him at the helm. So yeah, I think the Texans at this point are really trying to find a way to get themselves into better draft position. And so I like it. I'm going to take Jacksonville at home, and I don't know that either one of these teams is going to score 20 points. So I'm going to take the under on this one as well. So rather an interesting play there. But Kevin, that's going to take us down here into our next bit before we start talking about some afternoon games. And we've got something fun and exciting to talk to you guys about. It's called Props Fantasy. And it's something that we've been playing around with. We've been talking about here over the last couple of weeks that you guys have probably seen and heard us talk about. A few different ways there, right? Like Props Fantasy is a great way to play fantasy that gives you a new angle on this. And Kevin, I know that we've been messing around with this, but what's one of your favorite things about this?
I like the idea of being able to take teams from not only different leagues but different platforms and put them head to head against each other. That is just such a cool concept of being able to do that, whether it's week by week or basically season long. That you can do that in different platforms. You can set your roster and send out a challenge for people to accept, or you can go in almost headhunting, right? And looking to accept challenges, saying, yeah, I got this. So it's a very cool new concept, different than anything that we've seen before. And I mean, hell, I play fantasy football. I'm in five different platforms that I play fantasy football on. And this is unlike any of them because it's combining different teams across different platforms and different leagues. And it's finding the most common scoring denominator, right? To level the playing field scoring wise, and then it's just mano y mano.
Absolutely. And so that's what we did, right? What Kevin was just talking about, where you can bring some of your different lineups, your different deals from different leagues, different formats, different platforms, all of that kind of stuff. We went out there and we set some open challenges for some folks to come on and take on the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast in a couple of different formats there. So let's go ahead and head on over into Props Fantasy here and take a look at what we've got going. And we've got some different options that we can do to take on some teams here. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to head right over in to the challenges and take a look at the open challenges here. Now, as you guys can see, we've got several challenges open. Let's go ahead and start taking a look and see who we can try and take on here. Let's go ahead and you know what? We've got the Team Muck first one in here. Let's just go ahead and activate the challenge there, and we'll take on Team, I think that's Team UK's team there. So we'll get that one set. We'll just accept some challenges here, and then we'll head back in here to get some of the matchups looked at and see who we want to vote against there. JB Buck's team, we're going to go ahead and accept his challenge there. For the second one, let's go ahead and take a look at our third option here. Maybe not. Well, while we go ahead and get some technical difficulties figured out there on the back end there, Kevin, you want to go ahead and tell them a little bit more about some Props Fantasy?
Yeah, so Props Fantasy is working on a whole lot of new ways to continue with the sports betting arena, right? So they're finalizing their side of a deal to be able to actually bet on these games. So as we'll show you here momentarily, you can pick which team you think is going to win, and whether it's a dollar bet, $5 bet, $50 bet if you guys want to do something like that. And then what it does is it takes that money and if your side hits, everybody who picked that side, the money gets evenly distributed amongst the winners. So it also does play into a bit of the challenge. Like maybe you really think one team's going to win, but if they're so heavily bet on, maybe it pays to throw $1 or $2 or whatever it is on the underdog and hoping you can catch lightning, because if you're the only one on that side and the team hits, you take that whole pot. So it's a really cool concept. Right now it's pairable with Sleeper and Yahoo. ESPN is right around the corner, so they should be finalizing that here soon, and they'll be able to kind of kick that off. On top of football, I believe that they're also doing some basketball that is live and moving along quite well also. So it's not just a football site. You're able to do this kind of year round and multi-sport platforms.
Absolutely. So we've got we've got it back. We've got it running there. Looked like it had a little internet issues kind of going on there, but we are back and live there. So let's go ahead and we've got. I think we may have already picked on this one. No, we did not. So let's look at this matchup that we've got going on here, where we got one of the good old boys teams here facing off against PKSDG's team. And so, Kevin, let's just kind of run through the matchup here. And it looks like a rather interesting one here. I believe this is the Vampire League that we were talking about earlier. But matchup right now, you've got Cooper Kupp versus Cordell Patterson, Najee versus Tyreek Hill, Cordell Patterson versus Foreman, Zeke versus Penny, Tyreek Hill versus Jacoby Myers, and Alvin Kamara versus A.J. Dillon. What are your thoughts on this one? Which way you kind of leaning? Which way you liking?
Well, with Patterson canceling each other out, Tyreek Hill canceling each other out, it does kind of narrow the field here a little bit. But I think ultimately I like Cooper Kupp and Najee Harris and Alvin Kamara more so than I like Rashard Penny, Jacoby Myers, A.J. Dillon, and Foreman for Tennessee. So I am going to lean on our side here for this one. But anything's possible. We can still update rosters and everything else. But right now, I think Najee and Cooper Kupp put us over the top.
I like it. That's the way that I see that one going there as well. So we'll say that our team's going to go ahead and win there, and we'll go ahead and head back to the arena here and take a look. While we were going through that, accepted a couple of the challenges that were up there, right? So here's one of the challenges that is open. We've got our team facing up against Team UK's team. And so Mahomes versus Tannehill, Higgins versus Beasley, Barkley against Kupp, Taylor against Taylor, Debo against Najee, and Noah Fant against Kyle Pitts. Which way you kind of liking here?
I kind of like this matchup for different reasons, right? Like Jonathan Taylor cancels out, so that's completely out of the realm of possibilities there. But I do like the fact that Mahomes had a good Thursday night football game, so I do think that helps. And I think Debo's going to have a pretty strong game against the defenseless Atlanta Falcons. That being said, Cooper Kupp is going to be a big reason that Team UK's team stays in the hunt here. So, toss up here. You know what? I'm going to go with Team UK's team, Derek. Just so that way people can't say I'm always picking our teams here. I think it's going to be a close matchup, but I do think Cooper Kupp's going to be playing lights out this week.
All right. You know what? We'll do something that we haven't ever done here before. We'll take the challenger and go that route there. So, don't know that always just feels a little strange to me, but we're going to go ahead and go with it anyway here.
One thing I was just thinking of, and we can get out to the guys here. One thing that'd be really cool is to have your record to keep track of the games that you picked correctly and incorrectly, just to kind of have a running total and a percentage of, how you're doing. Right. That might be something that we need to kick out to the boys there.
Yep. I think that's a great idea and something that we can look into and get some information on and definitely bring that up and we'll look at that when we hit this thing up again on Tuesday. Let's go ahead and we got one more matchup here that's looking at on a challenge that we accepted tonight. And so let's look at JB Buck's team here and should be a pretty good one here. When you look at it, you've got Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes, CeeDee Lamb versus Devontae Adams, T. Higgins versus Hunter Renfrow, Miles Sanders versus Cooper Kupp, Leonard Fournette versus Melvin Gordon, Elijah Mitchell versus Devonta Foreman, Kelsey versus Gronkowski, Nick Chubb versus Fournette, and Debo versus Russell Gage. Which way you liking this way?
Well, I need to inform Dennington's team that Elijah Mitchell is out, so that needs to be updated here in his roster, although it looks like he's a little thin at running back. You'll have to switch Chubb into that spot and then fill it with a different flex position there, Derek,
Yeah, we've got some different options down
in
there
your
that we can.
GM tool. So
Yeah.
I think you're going to be stuck with T.Y. Hilton, man.
Yeah, well, it could
So,
be.
but that's all right. That's all right. So we're going through it. Yeah. Oh, show the matchup one more time, please. Thank you, sir. I like the fact that Kelsey had a monster game. I think that does give you a leg up there. Jalen Hurts, we expect to play based off of his full participation in practice. So it all comes down to, Miles Sanders, Leonard Fournette, and what they're able to get done here. But man, going up against a lot of Cooper Kupp this week. I like his wide receiver combo a lot. And I think that's just going to put me over the top for JP Buck's team. Like, I like Devontae Adams, I like Hunter Renfrow, and I like Cooper Kupp. Like, Leonard Fournette cancels out there. So Nick Chubb will help you big time because I think he's going to see a massive workload against the Raiders. But that is a big three-headed monster that JB Buck's team has at wide receiver, and I think that's going to be a little tough to overcome for us.
It very well could be. But you know what? We're going to go ahead and go that route as well and, pick the challenger there as well. So some very great matchups still out there. And again, guys, you can absolutely go through here and find you can get signed up. The link for it is down in the show notes and in the description there, depending upon where you're looking at it. But you can absolutely find the link to get Props Fantasy and download it. Be able to hop in here and challenge us. Like I said, we've got a couple of open challenges out there, so it should be a lot of fun. We look forward to being able to interact with you guys, actually playing some fantasy football against you. So make sure that you're giving this a shot, and it is a blast and a lot of fun. So always a blast here. And Kevin, I think that's going to kind of wrap us down here to the end of the props challenge in there. We'll get to that comment here in just one moment there. But anyway, Kevin, what final thoughts you got on props?
Propsfantasy.com, guys. It's super easy to sign up and get registered, and then it's just you import teams, and then you can join in all the fun. So join in for the challenges, gives you a chance to kind of get on the ground floor of this, test it out. You get to put your best teams out there that you currently have and stack them up against the best of the pros who kind of have them out there just waiting for you to say, hey, I'm better than you are.
I like it. So again, guys, you can find the link to it down in the show notes, down in the description. Go ahead and click on it, and you can take on some of our challenges there that are open. So head on over there, and we look forward to accepting your challenge and playing against you guys. So a lot of fun there, and Props Fantasy, great group of folks over there. They've got a lot of fun things going. Questions coming in here. MJ Junior 23 over on the YouTubes. I'd like to be your first guest to call in. MJ, that's not in the capabilities at the moment, but who knows? Maybe in the future we can accommodate that. He has a huge question though. 2-round playoffs versus the number 2 overall. Who's
round 2 of the playoffs?
Yep. So round 2 of the playoffs versus the number 2 overall, who's 11-3. So yeah, MJ, go ahead and throw your question out here in the comments, and we'll walk with that together with you and see what we can help you navigate there. But sounds like you've got a fun matchup ahead of you, and you've got some doozies of a dilemma to figure out there. While you're throwing your comment in there, we're going to go ahead and hit up the next matchup here, and then we'll come back here to MJ's question after this matchup here. So let's go ahead and start with the afternoon slate of games here. The Broncos are hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. Denver favored by 3, over under 44.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
As soon as I say I like the Broncos, they're going to lose. So I'm going to tell you that I like the Bengals. I do like the over in this game, though. Like, I do
Yeah.
think we're looking at like a 24-21, 27-24 type game here. So it's all going to come down to, are the Broncos able to keep Joe Mixon bottled up? Like, they have a strong enough secondary to deal with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and company, but can they handle Joe Mixon? So it should be a good game here in the Mile High City. I will personally be there cheering on my Denver Broncos. So I hope they win, but lately every time I've picked them, they've lost. So I'm going to reverse psychology this whole thing, and I'm going to pick the Bengals, hoping that I lose.
There you go. So this is again one of those that this feels like a push game to me. Like, this feels like a 24-21 type of game. Again, whoever kind of has the ball last, and I see this being a last second field goal is going to win this one. So, you know what? I'm going to take the over, but just barely on this one because 24-21 gets us to 45 points there, and that's where I see this one playing out there. I'm going to jump on the reverse psychology train here with you because, again, you're right. Every time we pick our hometown Broncos, they find a way to lose. And yet when we pick against them, they find a way to win. So I'm going to go with the Bengals here as well, or I'll just say a push. That's it. I'm going to go with a push and an over. That's my call here. So
There you go.
I like it. All righty, guys. So that being the case, lots of fun here. And MJ looks like he's got his question in here, and it looks like he's got a lot of help that he's looking for here with the full lineup. So Monty, Fournette, Connors got to start 2. The tight ends are Mark Andrews and Gronk. Pick 1. And a flex RB or tight end. He's already started Herb and start Hurts or Cousins at the super flex. Wide receivers are Renfro, Pittman, Ayuk. With Jalen Waddle and Lockett already out, I know where you're saying to bench which one of those two already. And you got to pick 2 wide receivers. So wait and see.
We'll start at the top, right?
Yes.
Like, we're going to start at the top here. David Montgomery, in.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard Fournette, in. James Conner is still a buyer beware. Like, and only because he's dinged up, right? It's only because James Conner's dinged up.
Right.
But Mark Andrews definitely in over Gronk, just because that, quite frankly, that's all.
If Lamar misses, does that concern
If Lamar
you?
misses, that does concern me. So a lot of this is, dependent. I think James Conner is going to see a drastic reduction this week against the Lions. I think the Cardinals anticipate being able to handle that soundly. So I expect more Chase Edmonds, less James Conner this week, trying to keep him healthy. So that is why I don't want to play James Conner. So Monty and Fournette are the default running backs that you play. I like Mark Andrews against the Packers more than I like Gronk against the Saints, just because the Saints have a crazy way of limiting Tom Brady. Like, they have just been able to have Tom Brady's number. That being said, if Lamar doesn't go, which you have time, right? Because Lamar's the 4:30 game, and
both the Bucks and the Ravens play in that afternoon slate. So you'll be able to pivot back and forth.
Yeah, the Bucks have the Sunday night game, so you have time.
Yeah.
You just want to be careful, like, at 3 p.m. Eastern, you want to make sure you check and see what the status is of Lamar Jackson. And if he's going to go, you're playing Mark Andrews and then Gronk in your flex spot. Man, the problem is Arizona has the early game. I'm not playing Connor. I think you got to go Monty, Fournette, Andrews, and Gronk. Like, I just don't trust the fact that James Conner is going to get his normal workload. I think it's going other places between Kyler getting back in the swing of things now that he has a full start back underneath his belt, and Chase Edmonds being back. So for this week, I'm benching James Conner. As for your super flex, I'm going to go Kirk Cousins. And a lot of people might be a little surprised by that. I think this high ankle sprain of Jalen Hurts, while he's healthy, is going to limit his rushing statistics. And I don't trust Jalen Hurts just to sit back in the pocket and sling it. The Washington football team has been better against the pass lately, so I do think that's going to limit some things for him. So I'm going to take Kirk Cousins, thinking that he finds a way to continue to feed Justin Jefferson and Osborne, along with Dalvin Cook being able to bounce that out on the ground. And then wide receivers, Renfro and Ayuk. I'm not playing Michael Pittman. I'm just not doing it. There's one or two leagues, just due to all the COVID and the injuries and everything else, where I'm being forced to play Michael Pittman, and I am praying that he falls in the end zone, because I think we're going to see a stat line of like three or four catches for 50 yards. And if he falls in the end zone, he gets there as a flex play, and you're just hoping for balance and some upside elsewhere. But I think the Patriots are going to limit Michael Pittman big time this week. So Renfro and Ayuk are the two wide receivers I'm picking.
Right. I would agree with you on the wide receivers. I would agree with the super flex. Going back to this one, and I agree with you on Mark Andrews over Gronk unless Lamar's out. The Fournette and Connors one, that's where I kind of go back to, and I could go either way on that one, and I'll state the case. State the case as to why on that one. So Leonard Fournette was my pine of the week from the Tuesday show. I know Michael Pittman was your pine of the week there as well. But part of the reason that I would be somewhat leery of Fournette is the fact that he's up against the Saints. The Saints, if nothing else, have prided themselves on stopping the run and keeping the run game in check. And the fact that Fournette is banged up. He was a limited participant at practice today and is questionable heading into Sunday here. James Conner, this is one of those that I absolutely agree with the fact that buyer beware on that one, because it very well could be that he's an active play and then doesn't really do anything on this one. But he does have the much more favorable matchup. And the question that I'm wrestling with in my own mind there is, if the Cardinals get inside the red zone and they get inside the 5-yard line, right? That 5 zone type of thing. Do we see James Conner come out and muscle one in the end zone? That has been his specialty all year long, and that's what he's done very well. And I think that he probably has a better chance of even in a limited workload falling in the end zone at least once there, more so than Leonard Fournette does. So at that point, going through that, does that change your thought on Connors or Fournette at all?
If healthy, yes. If they release the injury designations and they say James Conner is a full go, we are not concerned about his knee that he had the MRI on, then yes, I am playing James Conner over Leonard Fournette. It is only the injury that has me pivoting off of James Conner.
Okay. All right. I like it. I like it a lot. All right. So I think that's kind of where I lean there as well. Just kind of wanted to get your take after presenting that side there a little bit differently as well. So let's see, considering what India did, what do we expect versus New England? I expect New England to win. We covered that matchup earlier in the show there. Absolutely. They're saying, but start 2 Tampa Bay players in the playoffs there.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're a high-powered offense. Tom Brady's thrown the most touchdowns of anybody out there. And for the most part, right, like we're when we were talking about that, the only time you're going to play Gronk if Lamar's out. If Lamar's in that game going into that thing, you're going to play Mark Andrews over Gronk there. And you play Monty and Fournette there. But if Mark Andrews if Lamar's out, then you're going to switch over to Gronk. So not necessarily that you're going to go looking to start both of those guys in there, but Gronk is a heck of a pivot if Lamar misses.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is not a Mike Evans game. Marshawn Lattimore continues to have Mike Evans' number, right? So we are going to see a lot of Chris Godwin. We are going to see dump off passes to Leonard Fournette, in my opinion, and we will see Gronk. My guess is, I think Gronk might have the highest probability to score multiple touchdowns over anybody that you listed. Like, just how the game's going to shake out here. Like, it is playoff push time for Tampa Bay. Like, they did it last year. I expect the same. And while the rest of this team, yes, got a Super Bowl under their belt, there's not a combination that I trust more in this matchup, more so than Tom Brady to Rob Gronkowski. So I like the Gronk play, even in your flex spot. So Ayuk and
There's Ayuk and Renfro where
you're playing you're playing Ayuk and Renfro at your wide receiver spots. You're playing Mark Andrews as long as
Lamar's healthy,
and then you could play Gronk in your flex spot. If James Conner's fully healthy and you don't want to wait on Lamar, then you play your 3 running backs and you bench Mark Andrews and just sacrifice it and you play Gronk. But I am not afraid of playing both Tampa Bay players at all.
Right. I would agree with that as well. MJ, hopefully that helps you out there. Appreciate the question. I believe this is the first time we've been seeing you in the chat there. Absolutely appreciate you tuning in. Thanks. If you think of any other questions, throw them out there. Let's go ahead and head on over here into the next matchup here. And we've got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the San Francisco 49ers, spread 9.5, over under 46.5. What are your thoughts here?
49ers are playing great football right now. Their defense is coming along. Their offense has been clicking. Jimmy Garoppolo's thrown multiple touchdown passes in 4 of his last 5 games. I do expect that to continue. George Kittle specifically has been on fire lately. We will probably see more Debo out of the running back position again this week with
Mitchell,
being out. So that's why I like Ayuk so much, is because I think Debo's going to be playing in the backfield. So I like San Francisco here. I like them to win by 10 plus fairly easily, almost. Like, I just don't think this Atlanta team has it. We're not going to see anything out of Kyle Pitts or Cordell Patterson in this game. Niners will find a way to shut both of them down.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to really add there, but I think this one's going to be pure domination by San Francisco, and we're just going to see a runaway and hide type of thing when it's all said and done. So I'm not looking to, I'm playing my Niners. Not excited if I've got to play some of my Falcons, if I've got Falcons players rostered in the playoffs matchups here. Another question here. I have a trade offer for James Conner and a second for Debo. So James Conner and a second for Debo Samuel. Which way are you leaning there?
You guys still have trades going in the playoffs? That's an interesting twist. Holy smokes. James Conner and a second for Debo. No, James Conner for Debo straight up maybe, but the way James Conner's played this season and how Arizona's utilizing him, you're not gaining anything short term, and long term. I mean, if you're willing to concede this year, go for it. I think that's a lot to give up for Debo Samuel, given how well James Conner's played.
Yeah. So if you're giving Debo, are you taking the offer?
If I'm giving up Debo and getting James Conner in a second, yeah, I probably have the depth to survive the wide receiver position. So yeah, I'm going to take it and possibly get bounced, but I get a second round pick out of it too. So why the hell not?
Okay. Yeah, I think if I'm in championship mode and I'm giving Debo for that, I'm probably going to do it. But if I'm playing for a longer run there, James Conner is got maybe 1-2 years really left at a, to really plug and play in your fantasy rosters there. And I don't see that continuing. Whereas Debo, those wide receivers have a longer shelf life. So that's kind of how I would play that. And I'm assuming that you're playing Dynasty with the way that question's formatted there. So let's go ahead and head on over into the next matchup here. Green Bay taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Green Bay favored by 7. Over under is 43.5 on this one. What are your thoughts?
I'm taking the Packers with or without Lamar Jackson. The Packers are just they're hitting their stride. They're playing really well. The defense is coming through for them. I think that they will do a good job stopping the run. Um, I'm not overly concerned about Hollywood Brown or Bateman on the outsides for Baltimore with or without Lamar Jackson. Um, so I like the Packers to come in here on the road and continue to bolster their uh, position here in the playoffs as they're ahead of the Arizona Cardinals trying to hold them off. So Green Bay for me, I like the push honestly at 7, but if I have to pick one, I'll take Green Bay and the over.
Yep, I'll take the team that has just been covering all year long, and that's Green Bay. The Ravens, not so much there. I think that you are going to see the over here as well, because I don't know that you're going to see this Ravens defense be able to keep the Packers under 30 points when it's all said and done. So I think that you're going to see the over. I think that you're going to see Green Bay win this one and just kind of run away and hide on this one. And again, continue to try and hold off the Arizona Cardinals as these weeks wind down to try and bring in that number 1 overall seed there. Interesting turn of events, because if anybody watched this Green Bay team after week 1, would not have thought that this is where they'd be here in going into week 15, right after that week 1 loss early on. So very interesting there. Let's see. One more. We got another question. Barkley and A-Rob versus Elijah Moore and Michael Carter. A trade for dynasty purposes there. And again, that's one of those that it really depends on where you're at. If you're looking at a win now type of mode, the shelf life is going to be much shorter on A-Rob and Barkley, but the ceiling is probably still higher at this point. Whereas Elijah Moore and Michael Carter, you're going to be looking at a longer play with that. And you're going to be looking for probably another year or two before they really, really kind of develop in there. And you're hitching your wagon to Zach Wilson's development and the Jets turnaround there.
Yeah. Trading each one of those players separately, you can get more than what you're doing as a package. So I'm keeping a hold of Barkley and Allen Robinson for now. I get it. Allen Robinson's had a down year. He's been arguably one of the most disappointing fantasy wide receivers this season. But I'm not ready to give up on him yet for 2 Jets players. Two players from the same team. I like Elijah Moore and I like Michael Carter. I have shares of each of them in dynasty leagues, but I don't know that I want them together, and I don't know that I'm willing to give up Barkley and A-Rob for those guys when I think I can get more separately.
Agreed. MJ also saying that he's got Baltimore. They seem to have crazy wins. I think they'll pull out a sneaky win by 3. Not against the Packers. I think if they were playing somebody else, you might be right there. But there's a good chance that we don't even see Lamar play in this game. Banged up, all of that kind of good stuff. Let's go ahead and head on over here into our next matchup. And we've got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucks favored by 11 in this one. Over under is 45.5. What are your thoughts here?
Tampa Bay avenges an early season loss to New Orleans. I do think New Orleans covers, though. I don't see this game being 11 points. I think they find ways to kind of keep this close, and a large part is because they're going to milk the clock. I think Taysom Hill will be able to keep things going with his legs. The key is turnovers. If he has another 2 or 3 turnovers, Tampa Bay might jump out real quick on this one. So that is the one thing that kind of has me on the fence slightly. But if they play sound offensive football and you can keep Taysom Hill from giving the ball to the other team, I do think New Orleans could keep this game within 10. But I like Tampa Bay on the money line.
Yeah, agreed on that one. When I was looking at this thing earlier, I've got it right at about a 10-point game there. When you're talking the 45 to 45.5 on the over under, that one's really kind of sneaky on that one because I think you're right. I think you're going to see a lot more of New Orleans try and ground this game out and really try and extend the clock for themselves and really try and work the time of possession. So I could see it being a lower scoring affair. So I'm going to take the under. I'm going to take the Saints to cover, but the Bucks on the money line. So kind of an interesting little deal there as far as that one plays out. Again, this is one of those that you're going to have some interesting matchups here. You already talked about the Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Evans one. So play Chris Godwin, play the Gronk, as well as the running back situation. It's going to be an interesting one to see how this one plays out as well. Any other thoughts on this game?
No. I don't think so. I think the one thing is Rojo is what I'm interested in, with Fournette being limited at practice really all week long. Do we see more Rojo? Which it could be possible, but I think it's still Fournette's job to lose.
Agreed. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at one of the Monday games here. The Raiders, the Cleveland Browns, Raiders favored by 3.5. The over-under is 38 on this one. What are your thoughts here?
There are only two players that I am actively looking to start in fantasy this Hunter Renfrow and Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
There are some other options, right? You could go if you're really hurting at tight end. If you had Hawkinson, right, and now you're looking for a recovery option because he's out for the season with the thumb surgery. David Njoku's kind of sneaky play at tight end. Again, if you're a huge dog and you're looking for upside, Donovan Peoples-Jones is a potential sneaky play because he has that deep ball upside. But realistically, I'm not loving Josh Jacobs. I left his name out for a reason. I think he's going to be rather pedestrian against this Cleveland front. So Hunter Renfrow and Nick Chubb are the two big ones. That being said, I think Cleveland finds a way to win this game. I think they find a way defensively to just shut it down. And if they have to run the ball like the Patriots did last week and run the ball 55 times between Nick Chubb and Dearness Johnson, that's what they're going to do. And I do think Cleveland at home will find a way to squeeze this one out.
Yeah, this one has a feeling of just a kind of a boring game to watch, and quite frankly, I'm not upset that this one's going to kick off at 3:00 our time on a Monday afternoon. Just from the standpoint that I think that this one's going to be a game that ultimately ends like 14-10, 17-14 type of thing. Like this has just a slow, grounded out type of game there. That being said, though, Cleveland's secondary is pretty banged up here, and it's going to be interesting to see what that one looks like. So Hunter Renfrow, I think, is absolutely going to feast on this one. But I think that you're going –
can't throw the ball when you're being added to Myles Garrett's graveyard.
Yeah, fair enough. But this one could be very interesting from a standpoint of both of these offenses could be very one-dimensional, and I think that that's how this is going to play out. I'll play in Hunter Renfrow, playing Nick Chubb, and staying away from everybody else if I can help it at all. Let's go ahead and head to the next matchup here. The original Monday night game. The Monday night game here. Minnesota favored by 6 over under 45.5 when the Vikings take on the Bears. What are your thoughts here?
I think this is going to be a pretty stinking entertaining game. I really do. Justin Fields is coming along. The last few weeks, he has been extremely capable to be a fantasy starter for you. So if you're struggling at quarterback, if you have if you had Taylor Heineke, right? If you were in a super flex and you had Taylor Heineke, Justin Fields may or may not be available. If he is, I'd pick him up and play Justin Fields over Heineke anyway. But each league has its own thing. But I like Justin Fields. I think Darnell Mooney could have a pretty decent game. I obviously like David Montgomery in this game. And then on the Vikings side, love Justin Jefferson. I love Dalvin Cook. And I think Osborne will have a massive impact in this game as well, as the Bears have been very poor against the pass here over the last 4 weeks. So, good divisional matchup to have on Monday Night Football, but I do expect some points here. 45.5, I'm smashing the over. I think both teams find a way to get into the mid-20s in this game at least. And Minnesota by 6. I'm gonna take the Bears to cover because we saw what Minnesota did with the lead last week against the Steelers. So I'm going to take the Bears to cover the 6. We're going to call it a field goal game on my side, but Minnesota on the money line.
Yep, I like that. That's where I had that one going there as well. It was a 3-point game. I do like the over on that one, and you already talked all about the guys to start and play in this one, and so I'm not gonna beleaguer the point, but absolutely play him if you got him. Very good advice there. We've got another question coming in here. Start to Alan Lazard. MVS may be limited. The Ravens D will be on Devontae Adams. Julio Jones, Gabriel Davis, or KJ Osborne. You got to start 2. Which way you lean in there? I think Julio's out for me.
Oy.
It really depends on where you're needing to go on this one. If you're,
can we agree that Osborne's a shoe-in?
Yeah.
Like on this list, can we both agree that number 1 needs to be Osborne, and we can just take that?
And so I'm not liking Julio, right? Like I don't trust that, because ultimately, is it going to surprise me if we look up and Julio Jones has a 3 for 44 yard type of performance? No. And I think that's probably about what his stat line will look like there. Alan Lazard and Gabe Davis, while they may both have a 3 for 44, 45, 50 yard type of performance there, they also have the big playability that one of those could be a 40 or 50 yard touchdown there. So I think for me, if I need a floor play, I'm probably leaning towards Alan Lazard a little bit more. And if I need more of a ceiling play, I'm leaning towards Gabe Davis.
With Emmanuel Sanders being out, I like Gabe Davis a lot more than Lazard. I've struggled through the Alan Lazard train here in the last couple seasons in a dynasty league, thinking, all right, he's going to pop. Like MVS can't stay healthy. Aaron likes Lazard at certain points, and then he just completely ignores him. And it doesn't matter what defense is on Devontae Adams. He is going to see 12 targets and 8 catches for, $115 and a touchdown. It feels like it just feels like he's unstoppable. So I would actually lean Osborne and Gabe Davis just because of how I think some of that's going to play out, and the fact that I just lost my train of thought. The Bills. There we go. I do think that Gabe Davis will be able to sneak in. We will find Josh Allen scramble out and find Gabe Davis for a touchdown in this game.
Yeah, like I said, I think that Gabe Davis certainly has the bigger ceiling on that one, and I think that's how that will play out. The Panthers' defense has been decent though against the pass, and so that's one of those things that I could see that one, limiting them a little bit there. Whereas Alan Lazard and those Packers playing a Ravens team, and the Ravens team has been susceptible to allowing some passing and more yardage being put up against them. So that's where I'm saying I think that Alan Lazard probably gives you a little bit better floor. Gabe Davis absolutely gives you a much bigger ceiling. And now talking through that, I don't know that the floor differential between those two players is that much different to the point that I'm probably starting Gabe Davis and I'm just riding that.
Yeah, man. I'm going to make a quick argument for Julio Jones just because I know we both kind of dismissed him.
Okay.
The Tennessee Titans are still going to try to run the ball first.
Right.
And with the Pittsburgh defense kind of being a shell of their former selves, even though they got gashed through the ground last week, what I believe is going to happen is Pittsburgh might spend so much time focusing on patching up the run that they do get leaky through the air this week. So, quite frankly, between Lazard, Davis, and Julio might have the safest floor. Like I could see Julio's going to see the largest target share out of the three of them. Like
Right.
I do believe that. So if you just need the points, like if Osborne's going to be kind of your big play guy, and you're thinking that he's going to get a deep one behind the Bears on Monday Night Football, and you just need a floor, a guy that you can count on to get you 11, 12 points, and you're good with that, then Julio probably is your best play. With playing Osborne, if you need both guys to just go bonkers, I think Gabe Davis or Alan Lazard is a better ceiling play than Julio Jones, just because they're a little bit younger and the injury history isn't there with those guys. Because Julio could go down, like Derek said, he could catch an out route and drag his toe, pull a hamstring in the process, and have one catch for 12 yards. And now Julio's out for the rest of the game. And you would be frustrated as a fantasy owner seeing that.
Right. And that's one of those, we've seen that hamstring just pop up again multiple times this season, multiple times last season. Like it's an ongoing thing there. So something to certainly consider. But no, I like that. That certainly is a good point. Good point made there. Taji Carp, I'm pretty sure I just butchered that, but hopefully that helps you out over there on the YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. Let's go ahead and head on in. We've got some Tuesday football games to talk about. Not something that we normally get to say here on the Friday show, but Tuesday, here we come. The Washington football team heading to the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles favored by 8.5, over under 42.5. What are your thoughts here?
Man, with Heineke and Kyle Allen both being on the COVID list right now, this is very much a wait and see game from a betting perspective. Like the way it sits, that spread looks about right. The Eagles have been playing a lot better lately. That defense is coming together. You don't suspect that the Washington football team will be able to put a third string quarterback out there and keep that game under 10 points. But I am definitely waiting to see what is going on there. And it's also going to affect the over under, right? Like if Heineke can get healthy, right? And I have no idea what his vaccination status is. So if he does clear protocol and he can play this game on Tuesday night, which it seems like the NFL is actively hoping is what happens, then I do think that changes the function of it a little bit. I think Minnesota can keep this at a 7-point game, and I do think the over hits. If Heineke is not the quarterback, I don't think the over hits. We sit at the under, and it's a pretty easy win for the Eagles. So fantasy relevance, you have to play Antonio Gibson, right? Like you've rode him all this way. He hasn't been designated. He's not on the COVID list. He's not on the injury report. So you have to play Antonio Gibson. Depending on how the quarterback situation looks Sunday morning, I might have to sit Terry McLaurin because I just can't trust who's going to be throwing him the ball. So teams need to be careful about that and might need to pivot to an option that they're not as fond of, but will at least guarantee them points. Because the last thing you want is another 0 for 4 performance for 0 points. Because if you survived last week and McLaurin's goose egg, I would not try and dance with that devil twice right now.
No, I think you're right there. I do think that the Eagles win this one, right? They're still they still got some playoff hopes alive there. But yeah, I think the Eagles find a way to win this one. And again, I'm not necessarily looking to have to play, like we already said it earlier. If I can find a way to pivot out of guys on Tuesday games and get guys that are going to make sure that, I can get points and I can play on the Saturday, Sunday, or Monday games, that is probably the way that I'm going to go. Because again, all right, like Antonio Gibson, you pretty much got to play him. Terry McLaurin, again, I'm would be moving off of him as well. The Eagles, right, like Jalen Hurts, interesting option there. Miles Sanders, an interesting option here. And Devonta Smith, an interesting option, and Dallas Goedert. But other than that, I'm probably looking to pivot if I can. TJ Carp saying thanks. Playing against in the playoffs, CEH, JT, Dalvin, Jamar Chase, Pitts, Rodgers, Pittman, LOL, a tough one. You're not kidding. You've got it. You got a bit of a tough road ahead of you, but Pittman, I think, is going to have. Kevin's been pounding the drum all week long, saying that Pittman's not going to have a great game here, and I tend to agree with him on that one. Pitts, I don't think is going to have a very good game here either. So there's some hope there. CEH had a pedestrian game last night. Like, it was serviceable as a flex type of player, as an RB3 type of play in that roster, but JT, Dalvin.
Those are the two guys that scare me.
Yep.
Or Taylor and Dalvin. Like, I do think the Broncos will keep Chase pedestrian.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he's going to go rough shot for 250 and 2 touchdowns. He won't be the reason. But Jonathan Taylor does have a tough matchup against the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Dalvin's the one that's a smash play.
Yep.
Like, and Rodgers at quarterback right now, smash play. So those Dalvin and Rodgers are probably the two guys that scare me most, just because of Jonathan Taylor's matchup. I think the Broncos do a good enough job in the secondary to keep Jamar Chase limited, and he has been limited in recent games. Like, he has not had his blow-up performances that he did the first half of the season. So you can overcome this. This is absolutely possible to overcome. The name value on this roster is crazy good, but their matchups this week are
tough.
Yeah, they are tough matchups as well. So keep fighting. Not a guarantee that you're going to beat this roster by any stretch, but they have the right matchups for you to be extremely competitive and maybe sneak one out here.
Well, and that's one of those two, Taji Carp. You're probably going to be I don't know who you root for or not, but looking at this, you're probably going to be a very big New England fan when they go up against the Colts here on Saturday, and hoping that that defense manages to keep that offense in check. Aaron Rodgers, has a pretty easy, appears to be a pretty easy matchup there. You're hoping that the Green Bay just gets out early and a lead on this one, and they start just plugging and playing AJ Dillon to control some clock. A little bit of Aaron Jones sprinkled.
A lot of Aaron Jones, damn it.
And
lots and lots of Aaron Jones.
So there's a way too that Aaron Rodgers actually gets a little bit of a pedestrian game here as well, because for quarterbacks, when they start getting easy matchups, they start getting things like that. And if Lamar Jackson doesn't play, there's a good chance that you see this Green Bay team just jump up by 2 touchdown type of things and just grind the clock, and it takes Aaron Rodgers out of it a little bit there as well. So that I could see that one playing out. So yeah, you managed to, while you got the tough matchup there, you've got the players that have matchups that are going to maybe keep you in it a little bit more. So Kevin, last game here. Let's go ahead and head on over and into it here. We've got the Seattle Seahawks heading to the Los Angeles Rams. LA Rams favored by 5.5, over under is 45.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
This game is interesting because it is the Tuesday game, but there are a lot of players that you might be forced to play in this game. Obviously, you're playing Stafford, you're playing Russell Wilson, you're playing Cooper Kupp, and you're playing DK Metcalf, even though Metcalf's performances lately haven't been stellar.
But it sounds like Seattle might be without Lockett, so we could see a big uptick in DK.
Exactly. Lockett, Gerald Everett, again, if you're streaming tight end options, Gerald Everett might be a guy that you're looking to play this game. I like Van Jefferson this game. Odell has cleared COVID protocol, so Odell's going to be playing this game. So you are, outside of Henderson, you are a full go on Rams players. So if you have Henderson, that is the one player that you might need to look to pivot off of. Outside of that, or Higbee too. Higbee has a cleared protocol. But so any one of the wide receivers and Matt Stafford are a full go. On the Seattle side, you might be stuck where you have to play Penny and hoping that he doesn't get injured on his third carry of the game, right? Because of how the rest of this slate's looking at. Swift was just declared out. If Lamar Jackson doesn't go, I don't like Devonta Foreman or Latavius Murray for the Ravens. If you had Elijah Mitchell, he just got declared out, so you might have to play Penny this week. And it's not the prettiest thing, but at least he's healthy and he's not in COVID protocols as of yet. So there are guys in this matchup that you might be absolutely playing, and best of luck to you because there are not many pivots off of these guys because they're owned everywhere. So,
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I like the Rams. I like the Rams have done a good job historically against Seattle. I do think that continues, and I think that the Cooper Cup train just keeps rolling right along. So I think his prop is 11, 10.5 catches. I think it is for Cooper Cup. I'm taking the over. I think he goes for 12. I think he's hunting for a yardage and reception single season records this season, and Matt Stafford knows how close he is, and he'll keep feeding him the ball to do it.
Absolutely. That was another one of those guys that you mentioned. Van Jefferson's a sneaky kind of guy there as well that, if you need a ceiling type of play and a guy that is still available out there in a few leagues, definitely worth a roster on that one. Because if you need a sneaky upside type of play, he could get it to you. While he may only have 3 catches, there's a good chance that, those 3 catches are for 60 yards and a touchdown. Just the way that they tend to utilize him. So that could be an interesting play there as well. If you're a dog and you're needing a little bit of more ceiling power and some more firepower, trying to knock off the Goliath in your matchup there. So worth a thought there. But I think you're right. I think I'm going to like the Rams in this one. I like the over when it's all said and done. But yeah, Kevin, any final thoughts on this one?
Not on this one. A lot of stay tuned, guys.
Yes.
There's a lot of news that's still yet to come out, so stay tuned. Sometimes it sucks having to stay glued to your phone, but this is part of the reason we like fantasy football. Buy your wife some flowers, give her the credit card, let her go shopping, whatever it is to give you the time to be able to dedicate that you need. Because now that we're in the playoffs, I guess there's still free leagues out there, but hopefully y'all are playing for cash. Right? That's what we play for, is to win cash, win trophies, bragging rights. It's crunch time, and this staying tuned to all this crap and COVID-ness that's going on in the NFL, giving you a position to pivot to is going to be the difference between a win and loss this week.
Absolutely. Right. And for most of y'all are heading into either your first week of the playoffs, or some cases you're already into the semifinals. I know one of the leagues that I'm playing in actually has the championship this week here. So there's lots of very interesting things that you're navigating going through there, but you can hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. Hit us up with any of your questions. We'll do our best to get back to you as quickly as we can. Kevin, any final thoughts for the viewers and listeners out there?
Good luck. Good. In all seriousness, good luck. Have fun with this. Happy hunting, and feel free to shoot out all the questions. We will get back to you just as soon as we can to help you out.
I like it. So, guys, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for us. Appreciate everybody tuning in and listening. Very much appreciate you guys doing that and hitting us up with your questions. It is a blast for us to help you guys walk with you and try and help you win some cash and trophies here. Do us a big favor. Head over to YouTube, the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell. Right now, while we're in season, we do this show live for you 3 times a week on Tuesday night, Friday night, and on Sunday morning, as well as when we get into the off season here, we're going to start deep diving into rosters and teams and start getting you guys an early edge for draft season coming up for next year. But absolutely appreciate all of you out there. Do us that favor. Head to YouTube. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.